It's not like Don called up Tommy this morning and told him what to say. Mike Charles of Syracuse may be a good guess here. Perhaps a cornerback, but I think the guys that might have been around for the first-round picks are gone. A sleeper in the cornerback area, Darrell Green, Texas A&I, if they want a burner. But Miami's starting defensive backfield is pretty strong.
All right, what about John Tice? Need for a tight end out of Maryland. We're talking about that before the Dolphins. Their selection in New York City. They will be making selection number 27 with Washington to follow as we conclude round one. But the Dolphins about to make their selection right now.
Miami Dolphins, first round selection. The Dolphins select quarterback Dan Marino of Pittsburgh. Next up, the Super Bowl champion Washington Redskins.
That was Commissioner Pete Rozelle just about a minute and a half ago as he made the selection announcement for the selection of Danny Marino.
I don't understand it. Number one, I don't know who is going to work with him down there. Where is the great quarterback coaching genius of the Dolphins? I know Arnsparger is a great defensive coach. I don't see where he's going to get this great coaching that's going to overcome the problems he's had. I mean, strictly long-range projection down the line, and I think they need help in other directions. Maybe they felt that what they wanted wasn't there and they couldn't get that help, but I really don't understand.
You wouldn't label him as a classic Don Shula kind of quarterback either.
No, and that's true. But again, they got to the Super Bowl with a David Woodley at quarterback, and they must figure that they can certainly, if they can get it out of David Woodley, you got to figure they think they can get it out of Dan Marino.
Well, I don't know what is a classic Shula quarterback. He's only had one really great quarterback, and that's Greasy.
Let's see what the champion Redskins are up to now. Here's Commissioner Pete Rozelle. He has the card on the Redskins selection in the first round.
And Unitas.
The Super Bowl champion Washington Redskins complete the first round with their choice of cornerback Darrell Green, Texas A&I.
Thanks, Bobby.
Leading off the second round, Baltimore Colts.
Okay, so the Redskins take Green of Texas A&I. And before we wrap up the Marino situation, I think you have to point out, and after covering him for 4 years, the fact that the people that play with him, the people that work with him, have a great deal of respect for him. And he is a competitor, and he's the kind of young man who you feel is going to make the best shot that he can out of what he has. Maybe he should have taken the USFL offer that he had, as it turns out.
Well, it'll be interesting to see now the contract negotiations, not only with Marino, with Miami, but with all the first-round picks. So it's going to be something to follow as well.
Anybody interested in Darrell Green? Bobby Beathard was hoping he'd be around. Says he's one of the two sleepers in the whole draft. I won't tell you the other one because, you know, he was in confidence, but he said people are turned off because he's a little shrimp, 5'7.5", 5'8", but I think they're projecting him to that hot corner, the left corner that Jarvis White wants.
And Bobby Beathard, he's one of those guys. He has a feeling about a player, and very rarely is he wrong. One note on Don Mosbar quickly. 2 Southern Cal offensive linemen drafted in the first round. In the last 5 years, USC has had 7 offensive linemen taken on the first round. 5 years in a row, they've had at least one, and a total of 7 in the last 5 years.
All right, so the Washington Redskins, the Super Bowl champions, have come home with their selection, their third first-round pick since 1968. They haven't had too many of them, but they've got their first 3 picks this time around. Let's take a look at round 1 in conclusion.
In approximately 3 hours and 13 minutes, we continue on ESPN. The second round began as quick as you could say. Jack Robinson, Baltimore going for Vernon Maxwell, a linebacker out of Arizona State. And Houston has selected Harvey Salem, the offensive tackle out of California, 6'7", 270. First 2 selections. Denver is up, and again in the second round, still 15 minutes per selection. But let's backtrack a bit to Pick number 26 when the Raiders made a safe selection in terms of maybe thinking what they might do. Don Mosbar, tackle out of USC, and you look at him rating out to an 18-9. John Robinson said he was one of the greatest USC tackles ever in his reign there.
He knows, and he's coached many superior offensive football players. They're somehow, the athletic ability in the Southern California area is so great, and they pick these people up, follow them when they're sophomores in high school, through their high school career, and then hopefully get them to come to either Southern California or UCLA.
And he's a 4-year starter, which is a rarity, especially in the offensive line. You've got to open those holes and pull out for the tailbacks. And 4 years as a starter for Don Mosbar.
Especially at USC, where you know that they stockpile those excellent players. You know, you used to be able to say this about USC or the Pac-8 or the Pac-10, that if you come and you're an offensive lineman out of USC, that you are already accomplished at playing the pro-style offense. Of course, as leagues like the Big Ten and others now go to more pro-style, it's not so much, all right, if he doesn't come from the West Coast, he's going to have to learn how to pass block. But still, teams like the Raiders always like the Pac-8, now Pac-10 offensive line.
And Mosbar will be blocking for his former teammate at SC, Marcus Allen, unless a deal is struck. We've heard Allen's name mentioned, but probably now, and we're into the second round, it will not occur. Now, Miami picking right after the Raiders, the next to last pick in the first round, went for Dan Marino. Marino's stock had dropped precipitously with Pittsburgh's season this past year and a very poor senior year. What his mental attitude will be going into the Miami camp may be more important than what his physical attributes are.
I would hope and believe that Dan will calm down considerably. He was considered at the start of the year perhaps the best college quarterback. People talking about Heisman for him in spite of Herschel Walker. He's got all of the physical tools. As a junior, he played a magnificent Sugar Bowl game. He's proven that he's got the ability, and as you say, it's mainly mental, but I think that the coaching he will receive and the calmness of his development, he'll make it.
He threw 37 touchdown passes as a junior, but he threw 23 interceptions that year, 22 interceptions this past year. In fact, more interceptions, 5 more interceptions than touchdowns as a senior. The Sugar Bowl MVP from '81, but going next to last in the first round, and a 3.5 on a read. That is one of the lower scouting numbers we've seen in this first round.
Well, that's because of all the interceptions that he threw. That is for sure. He is the pocket-type passer. Don Strock will not be around forever. David Woodley is the different type of quarterback, probably, that is more mobile out there. But Marino with the long downfield arm, maybe they hope that with a little guidance, Paul brings up a point. Gee, who's going to give him the guidance down there? I'm not sure. But if he settles down, that he can be the Strock-type passer, and they would still have, well, they can't call it Woodstock anymore. We'll have to think up a name in the next hour or 6. But it gives them the different look at quarterback. So Miami did say they would be looking at a quarterback if one of those guys was around, and it shows that my sources weren't kidding when they told me that, because only one of them was left, and they took the one that was left, Marino.
All righty. Now, the final pick of the first round belonged to the Super Bowl champion Washington Redskins, and with that pick, they went for Darrell Green, a cornerback out of Texas A&I, a man who has speed to give away to his buddies at 4.45. He's approached 10 flat for 100 meters. Excellent kick returner. He's averaged about nearly 21 yards with punts and a couple of TD returns on kickoff returns, and also 4 interceptions this past year. So the Redskins, who last year won the Super Bowl, not with the draft. Bobby Beathard put it together with a variety, the waiver wire, free agents and some trades. Go for a little-known man.
Well, Roy Green, who plays for the football Cardinals, was a defensive back from Texas A&I. He's now an offensive wide receiver. What I'm really saying is that Texas A&I, they have some great athletes.
You know, in Darrell Green, we had just said a couple of moments before that the Redskins made the pick that I liked him as a sleeper, and that's by talking around the league, Bob. He is small. I mean, he's under 5'9", which isn't great when you go up against the big wide receivers these days. However, the fact that he is a flat-out burner, perhaps the best speed of all of the DBs available, and the fact that he can do an outstanding job on the kickoff returns, it made him a good pick for Washington. You're not going to question what Washington has done. They go for guys that are sleepers a little bit and have got them all the way to a Super Bowl ring. I think it's interesting in the first pick in the second round, Bobby, Vernon Maxwell going to Baltimore. Frank Cush likes the Arizona State guys. There was a lot of knock on Maxwell as a linebacker. A lot of people say you're taking a big, big gamble. His physical attributes outstanding, but his head in order. And Frank Cush doesn't care about those Arizona State guys. He says, I'm going to go right with him. No surprise he ended up as a Colt.
All right, we are 2 selections into the second round so far. Baltimore for Vernon Maxwell, Houston for Harvey Salem. Denver is up, and again, 15 minutes per team. If a team is looking for running help, They may very well look in the direction of Notre Dame and Larry Moriarty, who is a fullback, a pure fullback, 24 years of age. How could he bring some help to an NFL team?
I could do it all because I can run, and as far as I'm concerned, the biggest asset I have is my acceleration in my hands of catching the ball. And
Stand by.
I'll go anywhere that they want me to go. I just want to play professional football.
Just wants to play pro football, and he is the advanced age of 24. He bench presses about what Chris does, about 450.
Oh, sure.
So, and a big blocker, and he grades out inside, of course, as a better man, 4.7 on a scouting report.
Well, he was very impressive in the Senior Bowl workouts, and then unfortunately got hurt early in the game. He felt that in spite of the injuries that he had, that game gave him a shot, and unfortunately he got hurt again.
Okay, the Broncos are up. We are 2 picks deep into the second round. Let's get back to New York City. George Grant and company at the New York Sheraton. George.
Thank you, gentlemen. We're sitting and waiting on the second round. 2 selections have already been made in this second round. Waiting for selection number 3 of the Denver Broncos. They have already taken Chris Hinton of Northwestern, the fine offensive tackle who, by the time it winds up, could very well be an offensive guard for Denver in their scheme of things. And for those of you that are sitting and waiting for word from Tampa Bay, San Francisco, the Browns, and the Saints, they did not have a first-round pick due to various trades and other deals. The Saints, of course, lost theirs in the Bruce Clark deal. The Browns in the Cousineau deal, Tampa Bay in the Reese deal from last year, and San Francisco's deal went to San Diego, so they did not have first-round selections, and we'll be filling you in on how they transpire from here on out in the draft, because we'll be here until 6 o'clock Eastern Time, 3 o'clock Pacific, with our live coverage of the draft. And then in case you missed some of it and want to check out exactly what happened in this first round of play, well, we'll be back again tonight at 10:30 Eastern Time, 7:30 Pacific Time. Dave Sullivan will be there. They'll wrap up a full day of draft coverage on our 1983 draft review. That's tonight at 10:30 Eastern, 7:30 Pacific. We'll give you a comprehensive look at what transpired in today's draft. And of course, we got a lot more to come before we get to talking about wrapping things up in this one. How do you see this pick going?
Well, we were just talking about all the talent that's left now. You have your pick of the tight ends. Malarkey, Faulkner, Tice, that group. You've got a terrific little cornerback called Jeremiah Castile from Alabama. Now, there's a guy I know is going to play for somebody and play well. And everybody else says so, but he doesn't project that well with the computers.
He was graded very well in the Senior Bowl.
He's a great player. He's a great player, and he's going to play well for somebody. And I don't know why they don't pick somebody like that, but, you know, he's a little too short or too this or too that. Great player. You've got your second echelon running backs, a whole bunch of them. Hector, McSwain, Austin, that group, Moriarty, who's going to help somebody. You've got Steve Court, good guard from Arkansas left. There are some players. I mean, you've got all those defensive tackles we talked about before, Chica and Charles. I think there's a lot of talent still in.
We've talked a lot the last couple of years about the strength of this year's National Football League draft. The fact that the USFL did skim off some of the athletes off the top still has left us with a good draft. Not as great a draft as it might have been had it not been for a USFL year. But how deep are we from here on out, Howard?
I still think it's going to be very deep through about certainly through the third round. I still think there's going to be some real good players available in the third round. That's why we saw Houston trading up to get all those extra choices. 8 picks in the first 88 players. So they think it's pretty strong through 88, 100 players. So like you said, the USFL took some good players, there's no question about it. But as deep as this draft was, there's still a lot of good players left. And Denver now coming down on just a little over 3 minutes. As Paul said, they have some problems in the secondary. Aaron Kyle retired. There's a little contract situation with Steve Foley, who was injured all of last year anyway. You have a couple good safeties available. Mike Richardson from Arizona State. So there are still a lot of good players, and some teams are going to be getting some good ones down the line.
Let's take a look at what is one way of looking at the first round of this National Football League draft. The most number of athletes were from the quarterback ranking. 6 quarterbacks were taken. And interestingly, every AFC team that drafted a quarterback in this first round in the Eastern Division of the AFC, every one of them has picked up a quarterback. Baltimore, of course, in the first draft took Elway. Buffalo had 2 picks in the first round. One of them went to Kelly out of Miami. New England took Eason. The Jets took O'Brien. And Miami took Marino. Marino. So
That's amazing. I mean, you could sit here, we look at so many things, and an obvious fact like that, just jumps out when you see it like that. That is amazing.
And with, of course, O'Brien in there, 6 quarterbacks
and 4
taken on the first round.
Cold weather areas.
Don Weiss ready to give us the pick for the Denver Broncos.
Denver in the second round selects Mark Cooper, tackle, Miami. Los Angeles Rams are up.
The Rams are up next. The Broncos took Chris Hinton the first time out of the box. Now they've taken Mark Cooper out of Miami. The Rams have already selected Dickerson out of SMU. Will wait on their second